I'm looking for a bent right wrist at impact that I need to turn and pivot with to lower the dynamic loft to compress the ball with a shallow angle of approach. So what I'm going to start with here, I've got an 8-iron. What I'm going to do actually, and I'm going to show you this works with all the clubs you can use. I have a sand wedge. I'm going to start with about a 50-yard shot. What I'm looking to do is create the bend in my right wrist as I go back. And I don't care if you do it right away or you do it a little bit later on, it doesn't matter. So long as this right wrist, it should be basically almost fully bent back. And then in transition, it's gonna bend back even a little bit more. And then what you're gonna feel like you do is maintain that right wrist at and past impact. What's gonna really happen is your right wrist is gonna be bent back. It's gonna be more bent back in transition, so the angle between my arm and my forearm gets smaller in transition. And what's gonna really happen is that's gonna maintain until about down here, and then you're gonna start to slowly lose that angle at impact, and then even more lose it past impact. I want to talk to you today about live view golf. Now you guys hear me say all the time that you need feedback when you're practicing. You need to know if you're actually doing what you're trying to do, and the best way to give yourself feedback ultimately is video. And not only is video the best way to give yourself feedback, but being able to see yourself simultaneously as you're doing a movement is the best form of video feedback. It's the best way I've seen to make changes in your swing and be able to correlate the differences between your feels and your reels. Live view is super easy to use and set up. Simply set it up behind or in front of you. You connect it with your iPad or phone, pop that on the ground. You can actually do your practice, see yourself as you're doing it, the best way to expedite your process. I encourage you guys to check out Live View Golf. We'll put a link in the description down below with a coupon code. Hey guys, Eric here at the Bethlehem Golf Club. What we're going to talk about today is my favorite compression drill for the right wrist. Now I'm actually holding it behind my back here. I want to give you a chance and see if you can guess what you think it is. Along our road trip in the past couple of years, we tried a lot of different training aids, and I've tried a million different things that can help myself and you guys hit the ball better and compress it better with the right hand. And we found one that I like, and quite frankly, I like it. To me, it's head and shoulders above anything else we tried. It works every time I use it, and I know it'll work good for you. And we'll see if you guess right. It is the Tour Striker Power Click. Now, when I say head and shoulders above, I've probably tried, I don't know, maybe 10 different training aids designed to make your right hand compress a golf ball more. And this one is the best one to me by far because it's so easy to use and it works so well. So whether you want to literally go get the Tour Striker, this Power Click, we'll put a link in, or if you want to make something yourself, whatever, but this works incredibly well. Now, the whole purpose of this and how the right hand works, and we've done multiple videos about this before, so I'm not going to go at length with this, but we know based on our last video that we did, the compression drill for left hand, the idea for compression is to lower the dynamic loft while hitting very little down on the ball. So shallow angle of attack with low dynamic loft, with the handle rising through impact. In terms of the right hand, what needs to happen to do that? If I hold a club out in front of me with my right hand with my normal grip, right? If let's say I hold it up like this, for me to lower the dynamic loft, my right wrist would need to be flattened or bent back. It needs to be bent back, right? So if I hold this here, I'll get rid of this for a second, and I were to just have my shaft neutral, for me to lower the dynamic loft, my right wrist would need to be more bent back. My hands are more forward, I'm more bent back. Or if I just bend back my right hand, my club face is pointed more down towards the ground. If I flatten my right hand, my club face is pointed more up towards the sky. So a bent right wrist that I want to transport is going to lower the dynamic loft. How do I train that in? I'm going to take my little Tour Striker Power Click. And again, it's super simple. I like this one. I would just get this if I were you, but you can do whatever you want. I just strap it onto my wrist here, and I'm going to put it so the little clicker is at the top of my hand. And this is, Martin Chuck made this, I believe, with another gentleman. And all that I'm trying to do is create a sound or create a little clicking motion. Now, how I like to train this and put this on is to start small and build long. The macro idea here, I'm looking for a bent right wrist at impact that I need to turn and pivot with to lower the dynamic loft to compress the ball with a shallow angle of approach. So what I'm going to start with here, I've got an 8-iron. What I'm going to do actually, and I'm going to show you this works with all the clubs you can use. I have a sand wedge. I'm going to start with about a 50-yard shot. What I'm looking to do is create the bend in my right wrist as I go back. And I don't care if you do it right away or you do it a little bit later on. It doesn't matter. So long as this right wrist, it should be basically almost fully bent back. And then in transition, it's going to bend back even a little bit more. And then what you're going to feel like you do is maintain that right wrist at and past impact. What's going to really happen is your right wrist is going to be bent back. It's going to be more bent back in transition, so the angle between my arm and my forearm gets smaller in transition. And what's going to really happen is that's going to maintain until about down here, and then you're going to start to slowly lose that angle at impact, and then even more lose it past impact. But I bet of everyone watching, 0.01%, right? 0.01% of you hold your right wrist too bent too long. I bet a lot of you watching throw your right wrist too early. So I would like you to feel as though you keep it bent much longer as you're turning and pivoting into your follow through. The goal here is to create a simple sensation with this power click that you can then take it off and on the golf course or on the range, not be thinking about a lot of mechanics, but just grab that feel and hit and compress the ball well. So 50-yard shot, press it back, and then hold it. So for me, notice it'll make a sound when I press back, and it'll make a sound when I release. Press back, release. I want to press back and feel as though I never release it on this little wedge shot. So I'm going to try and press it back and feel as I hold it forever. And there, you see it didn't click through. Now watch, I'll flatten my right wrist and it clicks through. I don't want to hear that second click at all on this little basic pitch shot. Or if I'm going to hear it, I want to hear it out here. I don't want to hear it back here. So one more time, 50-yard shot. I'm going to click it back and then never let it unclick with my little wedge shot. Now for me to do that from here, if I don't unclick it, how do I get to the ball? I can unclick it to get to the ball, or what do I got to do? I have to turn and rotate with my tilts, right? So I have to pivot. So click it back, don't let it unclick. And that's just my little basic wedge shot. Now, I understand, right, that that's a little exaggerated. That's not what you really are going to do with a shot. Who cares? Over-exaggerate that. If you get to be the 0.01%, you should be playing phenomenal golf. It's a great problem. That's a wedge shot. Now I'm going to take my 8-iron and go into a longer swing. Sorry for those clicks there. And it's going to be the same deal. What am I going to try and do? I'm going to click it on the way back and then feel like it stays clicked. Now again, for me, if I keep it where it stays back and I don't unclick it, I can't get to the ball. Like, I can't get to the ball unless I do this, or I now have to turn and pivot. I'm going to say that 8 times. I hope that that sinks in. For this to work, 90% of people I see who throw the right wrist don't have any body pivot. You have to get the club face square to keep the wrist bent and compress it. You got to turn, right? You got to turn and pivot. So now moving up to 8-iron, I'll do about a half swing length. I'm going to feel the same thing. Click it back and then feel as though it never unclicks. Let's do a little half one with that. Click it back, never unclick. Good, and that's about as much. Now I hooked that a little, but that's about as much as I can compress the ball. That again was a half shot that probably went 150 from with an 8-iron, which is good. My full swing goes about 160. So press it back, hold it forever. Let's see if I can pivot a little better. The goal here is compression. You should be hitting like little solid, lower than normal shots. Press it back, and there mine unclicked a little bit. But again, the point being, if it's gonna unclick it past impact. Now, that's an iron. The questions always come up, can I do the same thing with longer clubs? And the answer is, of course you can. So for you to get compression, I've got a hybrid here. I'm gonna do the same thing. So I'm gonna press it back and feel like it stays pressed back and doesn't click, but now I'm gonna let it unclick maybe about 45 degrees past the ball. So a few feet in front of it. Now, little caveat. This is a little bit speed dependent, right? I type this YouTube comment out probably more than any others that I do. It depends on how much speed you have. What do you mean by that, Eric? I mean that the more speed I have, the more I can keep my right wrist bent longer and have lower dynamic loft. Because I have enough speed, I can have lower loft and still get it high enough and far enough. If you don't have enough speed, how do I know if I don't have enough speed? Let's say your driver club head speed is below 90. Let's just use that as a mark. If you're below 90, let's say you don't have as much speed, you can't keep it bent as long with the longer clubs. You need to allow that to throw a little bit sooner to get it high enough to carry far enough. It's the only caveat. Short clubs, no big deal. Longer clubs depends on speed. What am I gonna do? I've got my power click on. Right wrist is bent back. I wanna compress the ball, which means lower dynamic loft with a shallow angle of attack. And I'm gonna feel like it stays, my right wrist stays bent back. I'm turning and I allow it to release about 45. Everything else here is the same. So right wrist bent back, allow it to release about 45. Beautiful, and that's a little bit of an overdraw for me so far today. But same sort of thing, that was nicely compressed. I hit that very solid. Let's do that one more time. So bent back, hold that bent back as I'm turning is my sensations. And again, it depends on where you're at. If you see you throw really early, you gotta feel like you hold that really late. If you only need a little bit, you only need a little bit, right? So you have to video yourself, use the live view, see what you're actually doing, and then adjust it. Right wrist bent back, keep it bent back as I turn, and that's about as good as I can hit it. So I turned up my rotation there a little bit to neutralize, and that's my hybrid. So fairway wood, Eric, can you do with a fairway wood? Of course I can do with a fairway wood, but do the same principles apply with the speed you just mentioned? Yes, they do. So if you have a lot of speed, you can keep it way bent back. You can feel like you keep it way bent back. Of course it's gonna throw. If you don't have as much speed, you gotta throw a little sooner. What am I gonna feel? I'm gonna feel the same thing. So I'm gonna bend my right wrist, feel as though it stays bent forever, transport my body angles, right? Same sort of thing. 3 wood here off the turf, right wrist bent back, and then it stays bent back. And that was as good as I could hit that one. So again, with this, you have to exaggerate based on what you do. But for me, I'm back, and I feel like I'm letting it go about 45. You time that based on speed, you time that based on the exaggeration level, but the same deal happens, and I don't have driver here, but the same rule applies for the driver. So one more 3 wood, compressing it, low dynamic loft, shallow angle of attack. Good, and that's another one about as good as I can hit that. So if I'm training compression, I don't think it needs to be more complicated than the hanger in the last video we did. If you need to work on your left wrist, use a plastic hanger that you have in your at your house, in your closet. If you want to train right wrist, buy the Tour Striker Power Click. I'm not sure how much it is. I don't think it's that expensive. Or make something similar. It's so effective and easy. We'll put the link in case you want it. Or you make something that does the same thing. Train these, regardless of grip type, regardless of your swing style. We all need good wrist conditions. Depends a little on the grip, but we need good wrist conditions. Train this, train the lead wrist if you want to hit it more solid, beginning, end of practice sessions. Feel what that feels like. That's what you can start to use when you go out on the course. Hope this helps. If you have any questions, as always, leave a comment down below. Hey guys, thanks for watching today's video. If you like the video, do us a favor, click the like button down below. It really helps us out. Click that notification bell. Also, please subscribe. Another reminder, every Monday, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we are live here on YouTube for Rapid Fire Golf. Starting this upcoming Monday, May 18th, we'll be back, and then every Monday after that. Hope to see you there.